Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have another book haul for y'all because I did receive several books as Christmas gifts, and also over Christmas, my family and I went on a trip to North Carolina's Outer Banks, and while we were there, I visited several bookshops. I think I visited 4 or 5 or maybe 6. I kind of lost track. As I'm talking, I'll put up some clips from the bookstores because I did try to vlog in some of them. They were so cute and aesthetic, and I love shopping at small local businesses. I do own a small business myself, so shopping small is very near and dear to my heart. What was really interesting about a lot of these old bookstores is that several of them were in old houses that hadn't been renovated. So you literally walked into an old house and you would go through each room, and sometimes the rooms were separated by genre. So you would have like a mystery room or a cookbook room. It was really fun. I haven't seen a lot of bookstores like that, at least not where I live, but I would love to visit more. And something else I really liked about these bookstores is that they sold both new and used books. So I got a variety here today, and I will try to point out what's new and what's used, and also which ones I got for Christmas and which ones I bought at the bookstores. But let's go ahead and jump in because I have, I think, 21 books to show y'all today. The first one I have is The Winter King by Christine Cohen. This is new. I got it as a Christmas gift. And I believe I first heard about this book from Celestria on her channel. I will link it up in the cards in case you aren't familiar with her. Definitely check out her channel. She does great videos. And this is a young adult Christian fantasy. Now, I don't really read young adult books and I don't really read fantasy, but I'm trying to branch out a bit next year with my reading tastes. And I thought this would be a good place to start because the cover, just the cover alone, makes me think the book is going to be really good. And the story also sounds interesting. The little blurb on the back says, "A village trapped in winter, a tyrannical god, and a girl who will do anything to keep her family alive." And it also notes that this book is laced with echoes of Till We Have Faces, which is an allegorical novel by C.S. Lewis. And I gotta be honest with y'all, Till We Have Faces is probably my least favorite C.S. Lewis novel out of all of them. I really did not care for that book when I read it. And when I asked for this book for Christmas, I did not know that this book was kind of similar to that book. So I am super curious as to how this book is going to work because I personally can't imagine how Till We Have Faces can be made into a young adult fantasy. It should be very interesting to read. Oh, and the last thing I want to say about this book is that the main character's name is Cora, which is my name, or it's actually my pen name. Cora's not my real name, but I'm looking forward to reading about another Cora. The next book I have is Wistress by Nadine Brandes. I have heard so much about this book. I've heard about it from book lover Amanda and from Oshina and several other booktubers. And most recently, my friend Erin recommended this book to me. So hi Erin, if you're watching. And this is also a Christian young adult fantasy with a touch of romance, I believe. So again, way out of my comfort zone, not something I would normally read, but the plot sounds very unique and intriguing. From what I understand, our main character is a girl whose tears grant wishes, but somehow she ends up cursed and her next tear is going to kill her. I'm not sure how that happens exactly, but it should be a good time finding out how and what happens at the end. I've heard the end is like a really big cliffhanger, which I normally don't like in books, but what can you do, right? The third book I have is one I bought at one of those little bookshops, and this is The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. I believe I mentioned in my first book haul that I love classic novels and I love Charles Dickens, but I had never heard of this book until I saw it in that bookshop, so I was super interested, had to grab it right away, and I knew I was going to buy it no matter what it was about. But I'm really curious to read this because the main girl is a 13-year-old orphan named Nell, and I don't think I've ever read a Charles Dickens book where the main character is a girl, especially not a young girl. So I'm curious to see how he writes that and also just how the story plays out as opposed to his other books like A Tale of Two Cities or Great Expectations, where the main character is a male with, you know, resources, money, connections, what have you. And the cover is really pretty as well. I'm super glad they had this copy because I like this cover. The next book I got is also a classic. It's The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. I've heard of this book before but never read it. I think it looks super cute and fun. It's definitely going to be a spring read for me. I mean, that cover just screams spring. I don't really know what this is about, but when I was putting it on my Goodreads, I saw several comments saying that this was a children's TV show or children's cartoon. I did not know that. I've never watched this, but if I like the book, I'm thinking about trying to find the cartoon or movie or whatever it is and watching it to see how it compares with the actual book. Next up, I have a middle grade book. I don't normally read middle grade either, but for some reason I've been itching for middle grade lately. I have no idea why, but I saw this book called Green Glass House by Kate Milford, and I thought it looked really cute and fun and also very wintry. It's all snowy and stuff in there. So I picked it up and the back sounds really good. It's about this little boy named Milo who lives at Green Glass House, which is an inn. And one day all these random strangers start popping up and it's obvious that they're connected somehow. And he's trying to unravel the mystery of who they all are. It just looks so cute and fun, and I think it will be a great palette cleanser for me in between other more dense reads. The next books that I have go together. I got a new set of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and I also already have the Silmarillion back here in the same binding. So now I have a complete set of these. I'm very excited. I really needed a new set because my other ones were literally falling apart. So now I can finally reread these. I've been wanting to do that for probably a year now or more and just didn't have decent copies to read. The bookstores I went to did have the nicer copies with the illustrations and the hardcovers and stuff, but I chose to get these because I'll actually pick these up and read these. I prefer reading paperbacks as opposed to the heavy hardbacks, so I'm looking forward to that. I do hope one day though to get a really nice set of Lord of the Rings to display, but for now I'm happy with these. Next up, I got this little copy of Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim. This is actually the 50th anniversary edition. So when I saw it, I was very excited because I used to love this movie when I was a kid. I've rewatched it as an adult and I think it's pretty creepy, but yeah, as a kid, I loved it. And the book is also really good. In case you're not familiar, this book is about some rats who learn how to read and they develop this really complex society. It's super interesting. I don't know if this is classified as a science fiction book. It's from the 70s actually, 1971. So I'm not sure if this is officially categorized as science fiction, but it definitely has science fiction vibes. Super interesting. I recommend it if you are into children's books or books with anthropomorphic animals. I love anthropomorphic animals, I always have. So that might be why I'm so into this book, but it's very interesting. I recommend it. Okay, our next book might seem quite random, but I will explain why I have this. This is Into the Black by Roland White. And this is the story of the Space Shuttle Columbia, her first flight, and the astronauts that flew her. A fun fact about me is that I go through phases where I get really hung up on small pieces of history and I just get obsessed with them. I buy all the books, I read everything about it. I do that probably 5 or 6 times a year, and my latest obsession is the Space Shuttle program. I really have no idea how I got to my obsession with the Space Shuttle program, but it has me in a chokehold. Okay, I can't get out. This is not the only Space Shuttle book you're gonna see today, and I am loving learning about these, which is kind of weird because I've never had an interest in really modern history. I also don't have interest in like mechanical engineering or space flight, but something about the Space Shuttle, I don't know, I'm here for it, I love it. And this book also has pictures, which I think is great because not only does it break up that really dense nonfiction text, but it helps you to connect with the story and remember that it's real people. So can't wait to read this. It should also help me with my goal to read a few more nonfiction books next year as opposed to how many I read this year. Next up, we have The House of the Dead by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This is a fictional recreation of his 4 years that he spent in a gulag. I have read gulag literature before, especially from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I've read Gulag Archipelago and One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich and all that stuff. However, despite the fact that I'm familiar with Gulag literature, I do not think this is going to be a light and easy read. In fact, having this makes me grateful I have those middle grade books so I can kind of sandwich this in between some lighter reads and not get too bogged down. It's not a very long book compared to his other books, which is nice. That will probably be helpful. But no matter what, I'm looking forward to reading this because I do want to read Dostoevsky to 0 this year. That's one of my goals, and this is one of his that I haven't read, so that will help. And speaking of middle grade, next up we have The Pumpkin Princess and the Forever Knight by Stephen Banbury. I saw this in one of those little bookstores and it looked so cute, I had to pick it up. And the back sounds pretty good. It's about a little girl named Eve who flees an unpleasant orphanage and she gets adopted by the Pumpkin King. Obviously, this is a Halloween-themed read, and I'll have to save it for probably at least September of next year. But that's okay, I'll have something to look forward to. And another thing I like about this book is that it has this black border around the edges. I've never seen that in a book before, but I think it's really cool, and it adds to the aesthetics and kind of the overall vibe of the book. So next up is another classic. This is Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. Never read this before, and honestly, I don't really like this cover, but it was $3, so I got it anyway, and if I end up liking the book, I can always buy a new copy with a better cover. So this is a historical fiction novel. I think it was first published in 1819, and it's set during the reign of King Richard I, and it deals with all the conflicts between the Saxons and the Normans. This is the type of stuff, history-wise, that I normally prefer to read. When I was in college, my degree was mostly in medieval history, so that's the kind of stuff that I'm into. I don't know how I've never read this before. You'd think it would have been really high on my list, since I do prefer this type of history, but I'm finally getting around to it. Okay, the last classic I have is King Arthur and His Knights of the Round Table. This one is by Roger Lancelyn Green. I've never read this version before. I've read other versions of this same book, the same set of stories, but I really liked this cover, so I decided to pick up this version because King Arthur is actually another one of my historical or quasi-historical obsessions. I used to be so into King Arthur, it wasn't even funny. But I picked this up to kind of refresh my memory on it. The stories in the King Arthur legend are so great. I love them all. And I know I'm going to have a good time reading through them and kind of refreshing my memory on them again. Okay, the last new book that I have here is the one that I am most excited for. And this is the Complete Jewish Study Bible. Sorry about the glare, but it has this really pretty hard cover in this beautiful blue with some foiling, and it just looks like this on the sides. So on the back of this Bible, it says, "Develop a deeper understanding of the Bible's Jewish heritage. The Complete Jewish Study Bible pairs the newly updated text of the best-selling Complete Jewish Bible with detailed notes and comprehensive study material to help both Jewish and Christian readers understand and connect with the essence of their faith, God's redemptive plan for his people. Readers will be enriched through this Jewish reading of scripture and the revelation of the long-awaited Messiah, Yeshua, throughout both the Old Testament and the New." I am just, I cannot wait to start this. I think I'm going to use this for my study Bible for 2025. I do have another one that I was using this past year, but I can't wait to read this. As we all know, Jesus was Jewish, and there are so many Jewish connections in both the Old and New Testament that I feel like sometimes get skipped over, like the significance of them. For example, in the story of the woman with the issue of blood, she touches the hem of Jesus's garment. That's what it says in translation, but she's actually touching the tzitzit on his prayer shawl. And of course, it's hard to know that if you're reading it in translation and you don't have that Jewish background. And there's lots of things like that in the New Testament and Old that I feel like we miss out on. So I'm really looking forward to this, illuminating it and help me grow closer to God and learning more about the essence of my faith. Super excited. And now that that's here, you can officially see my stack of books that's growing. Okay, now I have a few used books to show y'all. The first one I have here is Fields of Grace by Kim Vogel Sawyer. I have heard so much about this author, especially her book. I think it's called The Librarian of Boone's Hollow, I believe. I've been looking for that book for a long time and I haven't found it in any of my local bookstores or used bookstores. I know I could order it online, but I prefer to support brick and mortar businesses when I can. So since I have not been able to find that book, I saw this book by her and I thought I would give it a try just to see if I like her writing style and I know if I want to keep looking for her other books. So this is a Mennonite historical fiction novel about two people who immigrate to America to escape the military draft, I believe, in their home country. And from reading the back, it sounds like there's going to be a marriage of convenience. I don't love the marriage of convenience trope, honestly, but we'll see how this author does it. Some authors do it better than others, in my opinion. I did notice, though, when I was looking up this book after I already got it and I was putting it on my Goodreads, that this is the fourth in a series, and I don't have the first three. So hopefully that's okay and I can still follow the story. If not, I might have to put this on hold for a while until I can find the first, second, and third books. Okay, now I have another middle grade fantasy / mystery. This is Winter House by Ben Gutterson. Again, the cover is so cute and fun. It looks very wintry. I'm definitely going to read this or try to read this in January. So on the back, it talks about the main character, Elizabeth, who is an orphan, and she goes to live with her aunt in Winter House, which happens to have a massive library and includes a magical book with these different puzzles that uncover this mystery that she has to solve. It sounds really cute and fun, definitely right up my alley as far as mysteries go because I do enjoy reading mysteries. It also looks like a comfort read to me. I think the cover kind of gives that vibe, so we shall see. I might also do a reading vlog for this because I'm considering doing wintry books reading vlog. Okay, I was just flipping through this before I put it up on the pile over here, and it has some of the puzzles in the book. That is so cool. I've never seen that before, so that's really fun. I know kids would love that. If you were, actually the age you're supposed to be when you read this, you could do the puzzles along with the book. That's really exciting. All right, next up I have Desire of the Everlasting Hills, The World Before and After Jesus by Thomas Cahill. This is from his Hinges of History series. I have read from this author before, and I've read from the Hinges of History series. I've never been a huge fan. I think his writing is pretty dry, but this just really stuck out to me. I think it's going to be interesting to read his opinion on the world before and after Jesus. I am not sure if Thomas here is a Christian, So I don't know if I'm going to agree with everything he states, but I just thought it sounded like an interesting book, and it's always fun to get new perspectives, right? And this nonfiction also has pictures, which we appreciate. All right, we have 2 more books to go. The next one I have is The Blue Tattoo, The Life of Olive Oatman by Margot Mifflin. So I saw this in the used section of one of those bookstores, and at first I thought it was some sort of fictional American West type book, but as it turns out, this is a biography of Olive Oatman. She was a real person, and I believe, yes, she was traveling west with her family when they were ambushed by some Native Americans, and she ended up being sold as a slave, but later adopted into the Mojave tribe, I believe. Yes, Mojave. So this book is about her experience and her life with the Mojaves, and then she did eventually go back to living, I don't know if it was with her family or somehow she ends up leaving the Mojaves. She ends up married to a wealthy banker, it says, and living in Texas. So I thought this sounded really interesting, all the more so because she's a real person. And looking at the back right now, it says Women of the West up there. So I'm guessing this is some sort of series about women from the West, which is nice because if I like this author, then I have a new series to check out. So that's another book I got. The very last book I have here is High Calling by Evelyn Husband, and this is a biography about her husband, Rick Husband. He was the commander of the Space Shuttle Columbia during the last flight it went on when it broke up in orbit and all the crew unfortunately passed away. And it says right here, the courageous life and faith of Space Shuttle Columbia Commander Rick Husband. So what I think is really interesting about this book is it's his biography, obviously, but it's also about his Christian faith because he was a devout Christian. And I think it's going to be amazing to read about an astronaut who is a Christian, because is there really anywhere where you can get a vaster sense of God's power and his just amazing ability to create and how awesome he is, except from space? I can't imagine. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about what it must be like in space to be looking down at the earth and all that stuff. It must have been so incredible. So I can't wait to read about the Christian tie-ins with this book, as well as the space shuttle, because again, I'm kind of obsessed with the space shuttle right now. But the coolest thing about this book is it's actually signed by the author, and she wrote a little Bible verse in there and everything. So I was super excited to get this book. It is used, as I said, but it's in great condition, and I'm super looking forward to this. All right, that is all the books I had to show y'all, but I do want to show y'all a couple of bookmarks that I got. First of all, several of the bookstores I went to gave out little bookmarks, which is really nice. Here's the one from Buxton Village, and this one's from Downtown Books. I like their logo. It's like a book and a wave together. And then I also purchased this little bookmark. It's a library checkout card. I thought it was so cute, and I had to have it, especially because one of my goals for this year for next year, is to improve my bookmark collection. Honestly, I have a few bookmarks, but I don't have very many, especially not nice ones. And I'm one of those people who will just use random stuff as a bookmark. In fact, while I was on vacation, I was using part of a, the Philadelphia cream cheese box. I just ripped that in half and was using part of that as a bookmark. But I think this will be way better than the cream cheese box. So that is all I have for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. And I do plan to do a video where I organize my new bookshelf with these books and all these and some from my other shelf. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! The next book I have is, the next books that I got all go together. I got a new set of, what is with these books?